Hello and welcome to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. This is your host, Ashley from Ashley Taylor Wellness. On this podcast, we talk about all things beauty, health, wellness, and optimization. Being a high maintenance hippie represents not being boxed in, as I strongly believe that one size does not fit all. I'm a nurse turned coach, and I have learned so much about both conventional and alternative options, and I want to help you expand your options. I'm here to inspire you to learn new ways to improve your quality of life and to take your power back. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. This is Ashley, and today's guest is one of my best friends, and she's someone that I've gotten to know over the last year. This is Jaclyn Renee from Jaclyn Renee Wellness.
Hello.
Hello. Jaclyn is a holistic health coach, and she specializes in gut health, and she walks the walk. She is not someone that just says, do all these things. I mean, she is the embodiment of it and is one of my biggest role models in so many ways. So thank you so much for being here, Jaclyn.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be on the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. It feels like some kind of reward in my career or something. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll have fun with it. I mean, all of these conversations, I want to be very organic, but one of the things I love the most about you is you're so real. And I don't know if it's from where you used to live. I don't know what it is that makes you so direct, but it's one of my favorite things about you. It makes me feel safe when someone is straight up, and it's not easy for people to do. And we'll get into a little bit more about friendship and communication, but have you always been very direct in your communication? I mean, and loving at the same time, but is that newer to you, or have you always been like that?
I would say in the loving way, direct, that is newer.
Okay.
But the directness has always been there, but not in a positive way. I think there were many times in my life where I was extremely angry and negative, and it came from a dark place, and I would just vomit out whatever I decided to say. But throughout my journey, I've learned how to hone that in and how to say it in a way that makes someone feel safe, in a way that makes someone feel good. But then I also feel heard or seen. One of the things I want to elaborate there is like when we've been a people pleaser our whole life, and you please and you please and you please, that's when I would get to the place where I would finally decide to speak my truth, and it would come out angry or mean. Now I speak it so often that it comes out in clear communication. It comes from love. And I learned that a long time. So always direct, but never in a really good sense until I had awareness around it.
Yeah, beautifully said. Because as a recovering or maybe recovered people pleaser, I think there's a lot of wanting to make others happy, but then it leads to resentment within us. And by the time we finally say something, we're at our breaking point. And if we had said something earlier, it would have been not the issue that it was. I mean, that's a huge lesson that I've learned too. So I think we both do a really good job of saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling right when we're feeling it. And I really value that. So I don't know how common that is, but it's great for everybody, I think.
Yeah, it's actually really refreshing. I feel like our friendship is one of the first friendships where I've had those truly, truly real conversations and been able to speak up and it not cause more resentment or misunderstanding or anything. So it actually takes both people to be able to say like, hey, I'm going to allow you to say what you need to say, not take it personal, and know that you have your heart, I have my heart, and how can we coexist together,
Yes. Well, here's one thing I want to ask you about too. I sometimes wouldn't like to have certain conversations face to face. And sometimes you'll say, this is an in-person conversation. And I've never really thought about that. Why would you say, especially for heavier things, why is that so important to have these conversations in person to you?
That's actually a really good question, and something that I more or less learned throughout relationships, whether it be dating or friendships, that most often the reason there was a problem in the first place was because of miscommunication. And we can sit here and say that like voice notes or text messages are our way of expressing our emotion, but it's not. There are, Simon Sinek even says like having a conversation isn't a voice note. It isn't a text message. That's like, I'll be there at 8, or hey, should I stop and get pretzels, or whatever it is. And some things can be communicated, but when you're dealing with real emotions and feelings, it's almost impossible to hear the other person's heart, to hear their emotion on it. And people are different with punctuation and everything. So if you're feeling a certain way, I may not have any empathy or compassion for that because I can't hear or feel your emotion behind it. But as soon as we get in front of each other and we have that conversation, and when we had that conversation at Whole Foods, we can now feel each other's heart and soul. And we saw like, oh, we were both coming from a place of insecurity. We're both coming from a place of care and emotion for the other person. But on text, it could come off the complete opposite. So now I've gotten to the point where I've lost friendships. I've messed up relationships with trying to over communicate in text, over communicate in voice note. I'm not doing it anymore. If it goes like beyond 1 or 2, I'm like, we need to meet, especially if that relationship is that important to me. If it's not important, it's like, okay, bye. But when a relationship's really important, it's so good, just get off the phone and get in person and get the conversation in.
Yeah. And, we can go into a miscommunication that we had, and we're sharing this because I hope that it helps other people and realize that relationships take work. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not always going to be easy, especially when we're older and we're all so different, not just you and I, but all of us. We have different backgrounds, and what one person thinks is acceptable or works for them is going to be different. So we do have to get to know people. Okay, so what happened from my recollection, we were very close. We hung out a lot. And then we went on a trip to Sedona, and I was having a disagreement with my partner. It was really tense energy. And I don't like bickering in front of somebody, but like we were in a car for an hour and it was a lot. And I feel that looking back, that was totally inappropriate. I learned a lot from it. So did my partner, and we grew. But you were very honest, and you said that was just a lot energetically, and it did make you feel uncomfortable, kind of like you were in the middle of it. And I was so upset because I'm used to people only telling me how they feel when they're done with me. So this was you coming to me. Not at that point. You're like, I need a little bit of space to process, but I care about you as a friend. I just want you to know that didn't feel great, and maybe you can say it a little bit differently, but my old stuff coming up is like, well, okay, then I guess she hates me. And that's not what you said, but there are people that will tell you something and you have to kind of dig through it. That's not you. Mm-hmm. So I did feel a little bit like I'd blown it. I felt like I then was going through a hard time, and I don't know. It made me kind of retreat when, if anything, if there's an issue, you'll let me know. So we kind of distanced ourselves for a while. I think you were still initiating a lot, but I got in my head about it. And how did that make you feel?
Yeah. Well, here's a thing that I want to say before, we say anything about our situation is everybody is going through it. Like, no matter how positive or happy or whatever you see somebody on Instagram or in real life, like everyone has such deep emotion going on. And I hate to even reference this and give it its power, but especially after the pandemic, like everyone is having their own rebirth, if you will. Prior to moving to Arizona and meeting you, I lost my mom, which was and will be probably the most incredibly traumatic thing that can happen to a person. For me anyways, it was just very life altering. And then I moved. And so I had a lot of that going on, but I had moved through a lot of it, but that's always like in there, right? Like it's in there. And then you have your stuff going on with Otto. You guys are deciding if you're uncoupling, you're having your arguments and stuff. And then we meet in the most highest energetic vortex in the world, in Sedona, right? Yeah. And emotions rise quickly when you're in a vortex. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a vortex before, but Sedona itself brings out emotion. And typically it just brings rebirth and renew and recreation. But if you're in turmoil, if you don't have that peace and silence there, it can drum up stuff more. And neither Ashley nor I had our peace there. You know, she was in something deep with Otto. I was in something deep with my mom passing, and I had brought my dog, and there was another dog. This was all the situation. So we both had like a very combustual experience. And then we came back home and it was like, okay, the dust settled. And then using what I said earlier, I communicated it on a text. I didn't call you. I didn't send you a voice note. You couldn't feel my emotion. You couldn't feel my compassion. So I'm literally calling myself out. Had I sent you a voice note or called you and said, it was a lot. I just need to calm down, you would have seen the lightness in my voice. But what you saw was like, probably, I'm out. Like, it's too much, moving on, bye, right? So that's why it's so important to have that conversation. I know that was a mistake I made. But one of the craziest things that we realized was coming to from it was both our own shit, our own trauma that came forward and kind of pulled us back from this friendship that was really good just because we both had an experience on a couple days, right?
Yeah.
Again, reinforcing how important it is for us to both communicate in those moments. But neither of us did. So we just kind of moved on and went on with time until we realized, like, wait, we've gone too far and now we need to pull back and have a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, this is not fun to admit, one of my wounds that I'm healing from would be abandonment. And that is because I did not live with my mother and father growing up. So deep down, you know, it's something I've been aware of. I'm working through it, but I just think everyone's going to leave me or they don't like me. And I'm not super conscious of that. I don't walk around thinking that. But when I get any type of feedback that I've upset someone, then I kind of will self-sabotage a little bit because I don't want to experience rejection. So I'll just pull away. Mm-hmm. And if I want to have the life that is my best life, it includes healthy relationships. That's honestly what it's all about. We need our health and we need people to enjoy our lives with. Otherwise, what is the point? You know, what's the point?
No point.
So how many people, including in dating, people who've gotten burnt and then they don't heal from that. They don't see how they might still see it from that lens, not to take away from the pain that people have gone through, but it can still show up and prevent us from being able to connect, not just in romantic partnerships, but in our friendships. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important to notice if any of that's coming up. So for me, it's kind of isolating or pulling away. And I think a healthier way would be to just communicate with the person and be emotionally grounded. You know, I don't think the time to talk to someone is when you're super triggered or angry. And I think we're both really good about being transparent, but not loud or disrespectful. And that makes a big difference too.
Absolutely. And that's growth because it used to be loud, but it's not anymore. But it's interesting you say that your natural inclination is to pull away. My natural inclination is to push away. So, you know, you can have two people who are very high functioning, high quality, respectful, healthy individuals, but deal with trauma and emotion in two very opposite ways that literally will create a push and pull experience, you know, which is exactly what it did with us. But it was such a huge growth and learning experience, you know, because not only did it allow us to communicate well, but it absolutely 100% deepened our relationship to the point where now it's even better than it was before, feels a lot deeper than it was before. But it's like you have to sometimes allow that space and be okay with that to happen, not you personally, but just in general, and say like, hey, maybe we do just need space right now. And when we're ready, when we come to, when we're both sort of out of our, you know, we were both kind of in deep with our mental health and emotions, when we come to a little bit and we can reconvene and go through that. I think it was so beneficial for us to kind of go through those emotions and then come back and have a win.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I said it differently, but it's easier sometimes. We want certainty and we want to know how things are going to work out. And if a person doesn't know, then sometimes it's easier to just be like, oh, well, I don't care anyway, or we're too different or whatever it might be. And I think a lot of people do that. So in adult friendships, there is a time sometimes when you outgrow people, but I don't feel that we're on two different paths. I just feel that it was old stuff that got in the way. So
Yeah.
when it's interesting because you moved here in 2022, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was November 2022.
Okay. So you got here and I think we met in that summer. What was your biggest priority coming here? I feel like friendship was your biggest goal, but I don't want to speak for you. So
Yeah.
when you came here, what was most important for you?
Yeah. Well, on a light end, I just knew I could never live in winter for one more year of my life. Like I knew by the time, I'm turning 41 in a couple weeks, it was like number one, okay, after 40, I'm not coming back to winter. I don't have to. I do want to say something about that. Sometimes we endure things, we complain about them, we get complacent in life and just say it is what it is. That's like my least favorite statement on the planet because if you want to change your life, like what do I hate more than anything? Winter. Okay. I can change that in 50 different ways. I don't have, or 40, however many states don't get winter. And so I knew that was going to be a part of my life. But the other thing that I was experiencing is I was experiencing massive growth intellectually, physically, all sorts of ways that my body was going through. And I was not being fulfilled in Michigan. I was feeling like big fish, little pond. And, it was kind of like I'm not being challenged. I don't feel like I'm growing here. I feel stagnant. And so I started to pray about it and I started to call in like, where is a place where I will now come back to a little fish in a big pond and can challenge myself all over again for the second half of my life and expand in ways that I never even knew were capable of me. And I'm still learning that and experiencing it. But after exploring a couple different places and traveling, that's when I met you in the summer when I hadn't even moved here. And I came to Arizona. I was like, there is so much expansion here, not just because there's vortexes close, but because the people here, high level entrepreneurs, like people who are really driven, everyone's super healthy. I mean, I went to the park with Luna the other day and this guy had to be 75. He was shot putting. He was practicing shot put. I'm like, that's amazing. You just don't see that a lot, Yeah. And so I felt like I just came here, you feel like home. I felt like Arizona feels like home right now and create an expansion that I never knew was possible for me. And I'm just scratching the surface of that. I'm like, whoa, there are a lot of different types of thinkers here and I love it. And, I felt like I lived in a box for so long and now it's like how I can expand and grow here is beyond exciting for what's next,
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I love so much about you. I know you haven't met her yet. I have a really good friend, Chelsea, and she was the first female friend that I had where it was very much collaboration versus competition. So you and I are both coaches. We do things differently, but I would send someone to you if I felt like you were a better fit and vice versa. It's very supportive. You are a girl's girl. And I think that's something that I struggled with. I've always had a lot of girlfriends, but I had more walls up than I realized. And one of my favorite things about you is that you're very social and outgoing. I feel like you can speak to anyone, even if you disagree, you can still find something in common with people. And you're not afraid to put yourself out there. Very inspired by that. Like it's easy for me to say, oh, I'll just stay home, but you've really gotten me out of my comfort zone a lot. So have you always been like that? Or is that something you've had to really prioritize?
I have always been that way. My mom used to call me Julie McCoy. I guess it's like a 1980s show where, it's like the cruise boat. And Julie McCoy was like the girl who always pretended she was the captain. She wasn't like the captain, but she was always like, go here, let's do that. Like the director of the cruise ship. And so she always used to call me, like if I would say something or do something, she'd be like, okay, Julie McCoy. And it was always like I wanted to just steal the show all the time. I think that might be the Libra in me. But it was kind of like that thing where like even if it was like my brother's birthday and they were doing like the video camera, I'd like step in and do my little dance and like exit stage left. But it's always just been a part of me to want to be social or social butterfly, my mom used to say too. So that's always been there. But I do think it always came from selfishness as a kid and in my teens, again, like that whole angry era. But as I've gotten older and channeling it into helping others, now it's so much more rooted into what can I do for other people and how can I channel this like angst and excitement I have for life into truly like putting it directly into helping others and I mean, helping the planet and doing better every day. Like, how can I get better every day? So it was a progression as I matured, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that has really, really, really been inspirational because you're always the one putting things together. I remember you hosted a bunch of ladies down in Cabo. That was incredible. I just want you to know that was one, if not the best girls trip I've ever had in my life.
Aw.
It was amazing because when we hang out, so this is what our friendship is like. We like to laugh. We like to eat healthy foods. We like to move our bodies, be in the sunshine, and go to bed early. We still like to get dressed up. You don't drink alcohol at all. And that is something that's not a huge part of my life, but occasionally I will. But on this girls' trip, there were, 5 or 6 of us?
2, 3, 5, yeah.
5. And it was my first girls' trip without any alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, oh, you can't have fun. That was an old belief I had. No, we had the time of our lives, and it was just, wow, I can have health and fun. And that's something I think that you do really well because a lot of people, when they're starting their health journey, especially if they're in a more serious condition, you have cancer, or if you have a chronic illness that's really debilitating, you're going to need more than an 80-20 lifestyle. But I feel like you do a really good job of making health fun, and I don't think you're miserable in your lifestyle. I mean, you just seem to really enjoy what you're doing. And people are like, oh, I'm going to have to dread every moment. Is that how you feel?
I will say that I'm actually miserable without this lifestyle.
Okay.
So if I go in and I'm like, oh, F it, I'm just going to have a margarita or I'll just eat this cake, like the next couple days for me aren't fun. But like foregoing that thing in the moment and having the next morning be awesome for me and waking up at 5:30 and going hiking, like that makes me happy. This lifestyle makes me happy because it makes me have good days every day. Even if I'm having a sad day or a stressful day or something goes off, like an hour ago, I like slammed my finger, whatever like happens, I can handle it because I'm coming in from like a very grounded place. And so it was just something that I said, like, what am I willing to let go of in order to feel good every day and wake up and feel my best?
Yeah. And there was a point in your life where you didn't wake up feeling that way. So when was that and what were you dealing with?
Oh, so much. I feel like that's a very loaded question. But, one of the things that came up automatically for me when you said that was when we tend to need things in order to have fun, that's just us masking emotion. So when I look back on, I was a binge drinker. I did smoke cigarettes. I did smoke marijuana, and that was kind of the extent of what I did. But I always did that in order to get away from a feeling I did not want to feel. Mm-hmm. And every time I escaped an emotion, pain came in, bloating, constipation, headaches, acne all over my face, acne on my back, all sorts of stuff that, it's your body's going to let you know diseases in the body, but more than anything, it's suppressed emotion. So it was kind of like an uncovering of what, like when I would wake up and feel this chronic pain and couldn't move and would, need all these things to kind of do it again. Those times were realizations of, is this how you want to live your life for the rest of your life? And I was like 25 at this point, waking up feeling terrible. Like at 25, we should spring out of bed, and also at 40, we should spring out of bed too.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, especially because a poor quality of health and life has been so normalized that we just expect, at 35, you're going to have back pain. Well, I'm 35. I don't have any pain. And I just don't want to accept that if there are things that are within my control. And there are. As a nurse, as someone who's worked in the hospital, I went to nursing school. I learned what to do in a crisis, but not how to really help people with that foundation. And that's really what you help people with. So as a coach who helps people with gut health, and that is where you specialize, I mean, I see this too. I think a lot of people skip over the foundations and they want supplements or they want something to just kind of get them there quickly. But that lifestyle, at first it's a little bit of work, but I genuinely enjoy doing that stuff. I don't think it started that way, but just like you said, it feels worse not to do the things that make you feel great. Once you know how good you can feel, it's hard to go back. I suppose people do, but it sounds like what your driving force is feeling as great as possible.
Yeah. And it sort of like became a mission where I was like, okay, well, now I'm like 6 weeks away from 41. So how good can I feel at 41? And, it just keeps becoming like more of a challenge in a healthy way. I'm not restricting calories or like, I eat whatever I decide I want to eat. That's, obviously makes me feel good. And I go wherever I want to go. I don't restrict myself to anything, but it's sort of become this like fun mission. Like, okay, I'm going to defy what everyone says is what happens when you age with skin, with the way your, body works, with fitness, like strength, pain, all of these things. And it just kind of became like a little fun game of life.
That sounds very love-based too. I want to see how great I can feel versus I'm old, I don't want to feel like crap. Even just that, the way that you worded it, it's something where it's empowering and you want to feel even better. So this is the High Maintenance Hippie podcast, and you did mention your age. So I just want to say that you are 40 years old, you don't do Botox, and you look so radiant.
Thank you.
So clearly there is more to beauty than going to get Botox, right? So what does beauty mean to you and where does it come from?
What does beauty mean to me? That changes a lot as you get older. I do think there was a lot of pressure in my 30s to do Botox, to do certain things to make myself look better. And I do think like I defied them a lot. Like I don't wear a lot of makeup. Sometimes I go 8 weeks and my grays are poking out. Like they're poking out right now if you're watching this on YouTube. And so I have kind of gotten to a place where I feel beautiful when I feel most comfortable in my own skin. And the more tight the outfit is, the more done up I am, the less comfortable I feel in my body. So I actually feel like prettier when I'm just me. Natural. So the most makeup you will ever see me wear is usually when I'm doing a podcast episode. But, so for me, just like with beauty standards, I think it can be so near impossible to be like what a filter looks like or how we're posed or what, everybody's like overly tan, overly this, overly that. To me, beauty is in the eye of the beholder and not the partner of the beholder and not the friends of the beholder, not the mother of the beholder. In the beauty is in the eyes of that beholder. So if you feel beautiful getting Botox, and if you feel not beautiful not getting Botox, that's beauty to you. So you do you and feel your best, whatever makes you feel the most comfortable in your own skin,
Yeah, it's different for everybody. We don't all agree on one definition of that. But I will say, as someone who chooses Botox, if you think, oh, this is going to make me love myself, like myself, attract the right partner, no, that's not how it works. All it's going to do is smooth out some wrinkles and it could have some side effects. But a lot of people place their worth in that. And, I would imagine, what went through your mind when you turned 40? Because there is this societal belief, I feel like, at a certain age, it means something. But what did it mean to you?
So I feel like this might be a good segue into you wanting to talk about dating intentionally, but 40 was so good and bad in so many ways because I saw it as a new chapter, as a rebirth, but I had also lost my mom 7 months prior to turning 40. So I also could care less at the same time because life, there's so many problems that I cared more about than turning 40. But on the other end of it, I was also, it's like a trifecta. In the other end of it, I was also like, oh, but I also want a family and I want to have a partner. And now I'm 40. So there was so many things like I feel the best I've ever felt in my skin. I feel confident in my career. I'm so happy. I love myself. But I also lost my mom and I'm not in a relationship. So there's some societal stuff that started to fall on my shoulders, and I had to really work through that at the time I was in therapy. I had to really work through releasing an old story of what I really wanted and looking at a new story of what I wanted, which is why that felt like such a rebirth to me. But if you go in, I have almost all my friends turn 40 the same year, everyone we graduated with, and the common theme is like, oh, welcome to the club. It's all downhill from here. I'm like, really? I feel like I'm on an uphill swing and you cannot stop this pendulum from going, but it's perspective. You have to really put an angle on it, a shift on it that makes you feel good.
Absolutely. The way I look at it is, well, we're all getting older. It's not just me, right? So if everyone is getting older, I feel like in many ways, the more you take care of yourself, the more you're going to stand out in that cohort of peers, because so many people just have the belief, what's the point? I'm beyond helping, but it's too late for me.
Yeah, it's too late for me.
And you definitely don't have that belief. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Martha Stewart started at 41, Vera Wang, 44. Like, you can't dismiss the fact that people have a second act of life. Mm-hmm. You can reinvent yourself. You can be anyone or move anywhere you choose to and rebirth at any time.
Yes. Okay. So in friendships, in dating, I want to talk about dating. I'm not single or looking, but I used to online date a lot, and dating intentionally, if you're 40 years old, you're clear on what you want, and that is a family. So that is something where you're going to know very quickly if someone's not what you're looking for, and dating intentionally, what is that like for you? And how is it different in Arizona versus Michigan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a difference from Michigan to Arizona for me. Maybe not for everybody. But the type of person that I am calling in is so important. And I did not feel like that person was in Michigan. And that may not be true for other people. I know people meet people everywhere, grocery stores and Starbucks and wherever. But for me, I am seeking such a small percentage of type of person. Actually, remember this conversation with Otto? He actually did the math on the percentage of the type of person I was looking for, which is like 2%. But the point is that I'm so happy in who I am that I don't need to find him tomorrow to be happy. I will wait for this person to come and enrich my life. It's definitely different. And so when you ask me the question, what does intentionally dating mean? The first thing that comes to my mind is, when you are in a relationship with another person, you're constantly exchanging energies, whether it's physically, emotionally, or sexually. There are so many energies coming into place. And so you got to be really certain that that person's energy and aura is one you want in your energy field. So when I started to become more intentional with dating, I actually just went celibate and stopped entertaining attention from any male at any point. Like, if they text me, I didn't text them back. If they messaged me on Insta, I blocked them. I was out for a while. And that was like a purging. And what that brought me to was so much deep self-love for myself, realizing that I was maybe relying on attention from other people or from men to make myself happy. Once I removed that element, I was able to say, okay, now I have my own attention. And I have God's attention, and that's all I really need. And so when I intentionally date, I'm like, is this person's energy uplifting me? Is it making me feel better? Is it enriching my life? Or am I dragging this person? Is this person just pulling my energy down? And I personally have not met that person yet. I haven't met that person whose energy I like, but when I date, I'm looking for that right away. So it's not necessarily what he looks like or what he does or how much money he makes. It's his energy, and it's the way he carries himself. And so that's like, for me, what dating intentionally is.
Yes, well said. And something that I really respect about you in your dating is that, especially if you feel there could be some sort of, not time pressure, but just if it's something that you want, I definitely think you've released a lot of that. It sounds like you really trust God's plan, and when it's supposed to happen, it will. And I feel that very much. But it can be really easy to look over some red flags because we want that connection. We want that family. We want that. But I don't see you compromising on your values or anything like that to try to make something work. It's not easy to walk away, but I've seen you say, it's not really what I'm looking for. How many women or men, how many people do you think don't want to go through that? And so they just keep going with it because it's hard to walk away. Do you think that's pretty common?
I think it's very common. I think it's probably 90% of people walking around in a relationship right now compromising. Well, relationships are compromise, but it's also about being with somebody who's willing to compromise with you and to walk this path that is going to be very up and down over life. Like when you lose someone or, big things happen in your life. Like, can I walk through this? Can I trust this person to walk through these hard times together? Can we grow together? Or is one person kind of always pulling the other person? So I do think it's very common. And I have also been in relationships where I compromised my values, my morals, my belief systems on certain things because I felt lonely. And so I felt it important to get to a place where I don't feel lonely so that I don't have to entertain a relationship for that reason,
Yes.
It just took time.
You are the best example of, there was a point where I was possibly single earlier this year, and I was thinking about dating and all of that. I've always been someone who would very quickly look for the next person. And I said, if I'm going to be single, I'm going to be single for a year. I'm going to focus on my friendships. I'm going to focus on, my life, my health, my career, but friendships. And I'm totally guilty of, at least in the past, when I have a new partner, it's like all my attention went there and my friends weren't as much of a priority. And you can't miss someone who's always there, but I do think that your friendships will still be very important to you when you're in your new relationship. And
100%.
Yeah. And I think that's fear on my part. I'm afraid that if I don't spend all my time with someone, they're going to go off and do something bad. But actually that was not making the relationship better.
Yeah. And not only that, but you can't get what you need from your partner like you can from a girlfriend.
Yes.
They don't want to do that stuff. I mean, considering you're in a, traditional hetero relationship, it can change based off of what your choice is. But man to woman, like, I don't know many men who want to sit there and, talk about Too Hot to Handle TV show or do these little girly things that we sometimes do with our friends that fulfill us in different ways that men can't give us. And the same goes for them. They want to whatever, I don't know, love you guys, but spit, chug a beer and go hit a golf ball. Great, go do that. You know what I mean? There are things that fulfill men in certain ways and there are things that fulfill women in certain ways. We're not really always going to get that from that partner. And actually, there's a manifestation coach, I think her name's Monica Yates. She talks about this a lot on her podcast about masculine and feminine energy. You have to really know what you can come to expect from your partner just because of their, male or female, and know that if you're trying to continuously get that from your partner, it's going to pull them into that and it's going to create bad sexual polarity, and you're not going to have that attraction anymore because there's no separation with it. So it's important to know that going in too is yes, I used to feel that way too. If I'm not with him, is he texting someone else? Is he with someone else? But now we get to the point where it's okay, we're really secure in ourselves. And when that person is gone, I know he's fulfilling himself in ways he can't be fulfilled in our relationship, which makes us come back together more whole.
Yes.
And connected.
Definitely. And that trust. I think what was missing before for me was a partner that I trusted. So it was very easy for someone to be my whole world, and that's not attractive to them, and vice versa. What I've learned in 2.0 of the relationship that I'm in after uncoupling is we have to have our own friends. We have to be able to communicate. Maybe we don't need to hash things out in front of other people. I think everyone's going to have issues, but put a pin in it and we'll discuss it later. But ideally, in our friendships and our partnerships romantically, we're not having the same fight over and over. Might take a couple times, but we grow from it and we know, okay, we've worked through that. And then there's going to be something else. I think that's really important. So in your last serious relationship, was having girlfriends a top priority for you at that time? Or is that something that after that relationship, you realized how important it was?
If we're speaking about my marriage, because I would consider that to be my last serious relationship. Since, 4 years divorce, they've been more shorter spouts of relationships to kind of figure out who I am and what I want. But in my marriage, we always prioritize friendships. He had his gentleman's club he went to. I had my girly dance classes I went to, and that was really important. But the thing we didn't have was, I think, a commonality for us to share. So it was like very much centered around hosting, having people doing things with other people. But then when it was just us, we were like, okay, cool. So I think it's important to have separate stuff, but I think it's really important to have things that you enjoy together, not always hobbies, but like also values and all those things as well too. So you can really do those things and bond,
Well, in the conversations we've had, I know how important a God-centered relationship and how important your faith is to you. So what would be some of the green flags or must-haves in a romantic partnership that you are looking for?
Yeah, good question for all you single men listening. No, I'm just kidding. The best book I ever read was The Man God Has for You. It's by Stephen Labussier. Amazing book, even if you're in a relationship, and also good to read with your partner. But it's about the 7 characteristics like a man should have. For me, obviously, being a Christian or having a God-centered relationship is so important since I didn't have that in my previous relationship. When a man has connection to spirituality, we'll just say spirituality because I'm not being judgmental, like it has to be God or, universe or Buddha or whoever it is. When they feel connected to a higher power, it makes them a more powerful man because they have a leader that's not maybe their parents. Because let's be honest, our parents were the best leaders for us. They loved us, but were they the best leaders that they, probably not. They just were trying their best. Right. And sometimes their best wasn't enough. And we're all just trying our best. But when you have a leader or someone you can look up to, you live a better life. You truly do. Because you feel like you are living towards something. So it's so important for me to have it. But when a man has it, it really puts them into a very solid, grounded place. And when a man is solid and grounded, a woman feels safe. And that's what a relationship is. Woman wants to feel safe. Man needs to feel his, into his energy and his power. And I feel like God or universe or spirituality is number one for me. For me, it needs to be Christian and God. But there are some other things that are really important. Can you have communication and conversation through the hard stuff and through the light stuff? I dated someone briefly that every time there was even the slightest bit of conflict, he shut down, he said nothing and would walk away. And by the 3rd time he did it, I just spoke my truth and I said, this doesn't work for me, because what's going to happen if I'm I don't know, if I get cancer or someone dies, how will I know he can handle our emotions around it? I can't be the one carrying our emotions for both of us. So communication, or just knowing he can show up in the hard stuff, she can show up in the hard stuff, huge green flag, there for it. Another green flag is that they've done some work. It is not embarrassing or vulnerable to say, I've done therapy. I've worked with a life coach. I was at my rock bottom and had to come up. Those are some of the best people when they've been through the toughest stuff, because they crawled their way out of the depths of the worst part of their life and used their best resources. So sometimes they're, 10 times stronger because of it. So, having that sense of awareness, or just like knowing to do the work when they need it, knowing to say like, I'm going to drop my ego and I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to get that coach and do better. Those are like, I'd say 3 huge green flags for me.
Yeah. You hear that, gents, ladies and gents? Therapy's hot. Well,
therapy's hot.
Yeah, any type, and it doesn't have to be therapy, but any type of work to deal with your stuff, because there will be issues in the future, and how we respond to it is really what it's about. I think in our fantasy mind, we might say, oh, never having conflict, but it's inevitable. How do we resolve that conflict? Are we a good team? All of those things I would agree with. So what about some red flags or deal breakers? What things are just not going to work for you that you have that certainty on for yourself?
Yeah. Okay. It's like, as you get older, your deal breakers change a little bit. It's so funny because like my deal breakers used to be more physical, a lot more superficial when I was younger. It was like, I would never date a guy with a goatee or something like that. Like, so dumb, right? But now as I get older, you really realize who you date is like your bunker mate. Like, who would you go to war with? Because we might. Who would you be stuck in a bunker with? Who would you do, another pandemic with? Those are the people, that you can really relate to and resonate to. And for me, some of the things that are deal breakers for me, number one, I'm not dating anyone who got the sauce. That's a huge deal breaker for me. I hope I don't get canceled for that, but it's important to me because it's not just about that they took it or it's in their body. It's also about who is going to stand up in a fight against this stuff. And I just truly feel like that was kind of like a fight for our freedom. So that's important to me. So obviously a huge red flag. Another red flag is when, and again, these are just personal, but if a man can't lead, if he's really flighty, all over the place, like I'm out before you can even say the word hi. Like I can feel the energy. It's very uncomfortable for me. It doesn't feel good. It creates a lot of conflict. Like I've even been in conflicts with men because it just pulls so much masculine energy out of me that it just is like very triggering. So knowing that you're in a very safe place with a masculine man, that's huge. So red flag, flightiness, not being in the masculine energy. Another red flag is, I would say those are probably the 2 big ones for me. I don't want to keep like saying all these red flags, but it's just important that a man be very grounded in who he is and, know his rights, feel his freedom, and stand up for what he believes in. That's, I feel like, the most important thing.
Yeah. And someone who is willing to have children, that's also going to be very important to you. So if they didn't want children, that would be a deal breaker.
That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot about that. But, it's interesting because turning 41, like, what does that look like if I want to have a child? The people I meet in my age range, around my age range, might already have kids, and might feel like, okay, there's definitely no way I can start over on that, or they may want kids and we may not be able to have them or whatever. But I think having a view of what our future looks like together, whether it's adopting or fostering or having one or blending families or whatever that looks like, I think it's just important to have that conversation up front, and feel like God will align what is supposed to be for me. But not either not having any kids and not wanting them is the biggest red flag. But if they have kids, then it can be obviously more of a conversation.
Okay. And it's different for everybody. And I don't think we should ever feel ashamed to say, this is what I want. This is what I'm not comfortable with. And Jaclyn's answers might be different than yours. I have my own green flags and deal breakers and things like that. I would say, if I can't share my full heart with someone and just share the truth of a situation, that wouldn't work for me. I do talk a lot, and I have to make sure that my boyfriend isn't my girlfriend. I've noticed that. But at the same time, just to have that radical transparency, not everyone can sit with it. That's important. And I would say financial stability, not even necessarily wealth, just stability, integrity. That's also very important to me. And, doing something to make the world better. Because it's great if you work
Having
a 9 to 5
purpose.
and you make money, but some type of purpose where you're making the world better. That's very attractive to me.
Yeah, a friend said to me the other day, she said, I date purpose-driven men.
Ooh.
And I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
Which means, in all aspects of life, they find purpose.
So lots of changes in your life. Your mom, I mean, would you call her your best friend? Because it sure seemed that way.
My mom and I had an interesting relationship. We didn't really get close until later in life, like the last 5 years. I think after my divorce, my mom and I got closer, but we had a hard time understanding each other, probably because we're the same person. That's what happens. We don't want to become our mom, and then we ultimately end up becoming our mom in the best way possible. I think I got the best of her traits. But we led two very different lives, in general. Maybe our characteristics were similar, but we led two different lives that created tension between us. And I'll just be upfront and honest about it. It was Western versus holistic medicine. We had very two different opinions on it. And, if I could go back, I'd just let it go. But the point is we both stood up for what we believed in, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. But as we got older, our relationship got stronger, and, it was just really important for us to spend time together, whatever that looked like, even if it wasn't really like, the best thing that she wanted to do or the best thing that I wanted to do. We just spent time and did what we could find a commonality. And so, the relationship grew and it got stronger as time went on. And then, it's interesting because you get to a place where the relationship is potentially at its strongest and then it gets taken away or things change. But I would have had way more regret and felt way more awful if she would have passed when our relationship wasn't good. Now I feel like I'm just continuing my relationship with her on the other side.
Yeah.
Like she's here somewhere in this room.
Beautifully said. I mean, something like that and other situations that are going on really make me realize how important it is to tell people that I love them and that I care about them. And that can be really hard for a lot of people. But I think it's really important. So you had that situation, which I know was very, very heavy on your heart, and it still may be. I think it takes time. It looks different for everybody. But that, moving to Arizona, having your own business, that in itself can be stressful. Lots of different things. But I feel like you're in this season of something beautiful is about to come into your life. It's this new chapter, and I'm just so excited to watch it all unfold. And I've noticed a ton of growth, even, over the last year. So I'm really grateful for the transparency that we have, because if it's not so flattering or whatever, I just don't feel like there's judgment, and that I hope you know that it's safe for you to be who you are and vice versa. There was a point when that space was there where I created a story in my head that you were judging me, but when I talked to you about it, it was me judging me for that, So once again, transparency is also important, but, this new chapter, I'm very excited to see what happens, but it sounds like for you to get to the outcome you want, you're focusing on being the best version of yourself, doing the things that you and your ideal partner would like to do. That's a great way to meet them. Surrounding yourself with lots of community. And, what would you say your biggest priorities just in life are right now?
I would say my biggest priority is, one, how can I challenge myself this week, this month, this year? Okay, not in a way where it's never enough, but more in a way where it's like, don't let yourself stay stagnant. Because every time I do, that's when, you can feel just like, I don't know, depressed. You can fall into the trap of feeling like, a victim. So number one, I don't want to have victim mentality. I want to just keep challenging myself to do more. And the second thing is I am just doing things even if I'm afraid of them. Like, and most of the time I'm afraid of them. Actually, probably all of the time I'm afraid of them. There's fear with every decision I have to make as I continue to grow and expand and do all these things. But I'm just doing it scared. And I'm going to let love lead me. I'm going to let God lead me and know that whatever choice I make, even if it ends up being a mistake, it was never wrong on my journey. It was just a part of it. And just living with no regrets. One of the things I did learn from my mom and more later, like after she passed, just listening to people talk about her and like kind of, when I wrote her eulogy, was she was everyone's best friend. She was always like the nicest person in the room. She would give the shirt off of her back. She led with love all the time, even when someone was mean to her, even when she was down on her luck, all these things. And so that is like my ultimate goal. Like I want to get to my funeral and have somebody say the same thing about me.
Well, if I'm there, I'll have some great things to say, because you really are just so self-aware, so willing to call yourself out. You did that earlier. I did that earlier. And it's not like it's being held over your head or vice versa. So not everyone is going to appreciate the vulnerability, the direct communication. Once again, you were direct with me, and then I created a story like, well, it must mean she's at her breaking point. And we just have to check in with ourselves and make sure we're not creating a story. Always go to the source. Yeah. And I'm not opposed to talking to people in my life about the situations I have, but you've always got to tell the person that you're having the issue with, or else nothing's going to change, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could stay on the same cycle forever.
Yes. You have something very exciting coming up, and that will be in a few months. So what are you doing in December? And why is this so important? And what's the significance of this for you?
Yeah. So I'm going to Peru. I know a lot of people go to Peru, so it's not like, this crazy thing that nobody's done before. But the retreat is called the Warrior Retreat. It's led by Branden Collinsworth, who is a yoga teacher and TED Talk speaker. He's very brilliant. Coming from all of his talks are coming from a place of self-love, like really reinventing yourself into a person who loves himself. And that's been my journey. And so when I got connected with his page and started learning more about this retreat he was having, I just felt immediately called to it, but you have to apply. There's like maybe 500 applicants. They pick like 16 people. And so my journey into interviewing with it and filling out the application and everything, I really felt like I was led by my mom. And, I kind of felt like I had it from the beginning. I don't want that to sound conceited, but it was like this message, this intuitive pull that like I was supposed to apply for this. I'm supposed to be here. And then, I got the email that I was accepted for it, and I will be going in December for 2 weeks. I'll be taking the whole month off of work, which I've never done. But now the reality is setting in because I will be going on my first journey with ayahuasca, which is like, whoa. We get there and we go right into the jungle. We go right into the Amazon. We forage our own ayahuasca and we go right into ceremony. So,
well, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
If you're, involved in that process too, because even with food, we don't have a lot of reverence for it. Sometimes just a sandwich, but we don't think about where it came from. And when you grow your own or you're involved in that process, kind of like at Flora Farms, it's just so cool. So what is do you have an intention that you feel comfortable sharing about sitting with this medicine?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I shared this basically the same way on the interview. And I interviewed with Ozma, who runs its center retreats, who like handles a lot of this stuff for Branden. She's at like point blank was like, why do you even want to be here? Why do you even want to do this? Because it's pretty crazy. Like you're not just going on this pretty retreat to Peru. Like you're climbing Machu Picchu. You're swimming in the Amazon River. You're with bugs. You're taking ayahuasca. So it's a challenging retreat. It's not, Bali for like a month or something like that. And so she was like, why do you want to do this? And I said, I know that I have a capability inside of me, and the key is in my hand. The thought process is in my mind. Literally, the vision board is in front of me. Like literally at this moment. The vision board is in front of me. But there is something like a gate blocking that step. And I have done so much work on myself, and I have used so many coaches, and I have so many high-level friends around me, including you, just unlocking these things little by little. There's a last element that just when you just need that last push, off
Sure.
the end.
Yeah.
And this feels like that push for me to live so authentically in who I want to be, that leads from unconditional love all the time and almost makes me just as amazing as my mom. And I need this for that. I literally told her, I was like, I need this to unlock that potential. And then I think, and I know I can help so many more people. I have infinite amount of ability in me. And I didn't even actually plan any programs for 2024. I don't have any programming ready. I don't have anything ready because I know this is going to unlock something that I have to move from that. So I'm literally ending all of my programs this year in what I'm doing because I need this to show me how I start helping people next. And, that's exactly, I got chills. That's exactly how I said it to her. And that's exactly what my intention is for the whole thing. And I know it will get me there.
Yes. It's a medicine that it's not my favorite, but I also think that could be a reflection of the state that I was in, not such a great place when I sat with it. But I think for a lot of people, they always think they need to do new things. And sometimes it's letting go. And medicines like that, plant medicines like ayahuasca or combo or something that's going to cause you to purge, quite literally, but also metaphorically, you are letting go. And it's like when we let go of the armor around our hearts or beliefs or whatever it might be that's in our way, we don't even know that it's there.
Yeah.
Then all of this comes through. So it's like it's there, but we don't realize sometimes it's being blocked. So my understanding is that it's not adding something in as much as a tool for letting go and seeing things from a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. It is when you're kind of ready for a shift in perspective.
Yes.
That's exactly what she serves. Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Well, I'm so excited for you.
yeah, me too.
And I can't wait to see what new direction you go because I know you're very passionate about gut health and that is what you've been helping clients with for many years. How long have you been a health coach?
I've been a health coach for 8, and I've been solely focused on gut health the entire time. So I never really wavered. It dips a little into hormones and fertility and stuff with my clients' acne, but it's always been very rooted in gut health.
How can people work with you? What things do you have? And I know your offers will change as you go through this ceremony and, unlock new things. But at this present moment, and you have a retreat coming up in October. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The membership is my my biggest focus right now. It's a monthly membership. It's only $44 a month, but I want to put a lot of value into it because number one, I know there's a lot of information out there. It's information overload. Number two, it can be very expensive to be on a gut healing journey. And number three, a lot of times what people need is just accountability and support and someone to bounce ideas off of. So that's exactly what the membership is. It's like I'm your health advocate and my health coach assistant helps me run it. We have 2 meetings a month. One meeting is like a workshop where I'm teaching them something from the program. And the second meeting is a guest speaker. So I'm hoping to have you as a guest speaker in there, talk about biohacking and women's health and all that stuff. So every month we have these 2 meetings. They get access to the chat, they get access to the program. So it keeps it really simple and light. And then if they feel like, oh, I need more support, they can jump into one-on-one or a higher group program. But it's like a nice starting point for many people. So our big push right now is going to be to bring people into this membership so they can be part of a community, a like-minded community of women, all there to heal their gut and start growing and building relationships. A major goal of mine that will not change is to eventually get the membership with 500 to 1,000 people and then have an in-person event with everyone in the membership somewhere in the States so everyone can come. So that's a big goal of mine. And then additionally, as a short-term offer, if you want short-term relief and you want to build your inner fire back in. You're feeling burnt out. You're feeling stressed. I have my retreat in October. It's October 15th and the 19th in the magical vortex of Sedona. Sans trauma, but it will be really incredible. We're doing gentle hikes, mindful movement. We have a private chef. We're going to meet in a private villa. And it's small. It's only going to be 10 people. So we do have 3 spots available that will be available when you put this podcast up. And we'll give you the link below. I'm sure we'll share that as well too. So those are the 2 major offerings I have right now until I have my shift in perspective.
Yes. And I will say that Jaclyn and I were going to do a retreat together. The way that it worked out, we're doing our own, but we did kind of like a trial run when we were down in Cabo. And I have to say, you are the most gracious host, and you're very attentive to everyone around. I just feel like this retreat, people are going to be so supported. I know food is very important to you, high quality nutrition. We both like to eat. So I would love to attend. I won't be able to, but I would recommend if that's something you're interested in, and it's a bigger group. I have my own retreat, but they're different. But this will be a larger group. Right. As of now, I think you have how many people going?
So we have 7. Our goal is to get about 10 or 11 women there. We have 7 signed up right now. So we have about 3 or 4 spaces left, depending on if people want a room together or not. That's always the thing, And so, it's not super large. It's small enough to feel supported and connected, but the goal, the thing that I do want to share about the retreat is most women, I would say, are between 35 and 45. And I think that's important because it's relatable for these women to be around women there, like in our age range, and that are all dealing with maybe burnout and chronic illness. So if that speaks to you and you're stuck in that, like half the women have children or they're executive assistants, they live high stress, high profile lives. And this is a time for them to come and literally trust fall and feel fully supported, where someone can finally take care of them since they've been taking care of other people for so long.
Yes. And as someone who, I call myself a high maintenance hippie, being in your space, being in a place where you're planning everything, above and beyond, you're so good at this. And I think it's just going to be the best experience. And I know that another one of our close friends will be joining to help facilitate some things. So it's going to be incredible. And I will make sure that there's a link and see if it's a good fit. But I'm saying this to you, but to the audience listening, I could not speak more highly of Jaclyn as a person. She's fun. She loves to cook, and I'm so grateful for that. She's active, and it's not just about the physical stuff. I think you do a really good job of integrating all of these parts, and you really helped me with my own spirituality and my relationship to God and just prayer every morning. Like you've been such an amazing role model for me in so many ways. So I think the women that attend will have an amazing experience. And I feel like this is something you were definitely born to do. You do such a great job with bringing people together and creating such a healing, loving place for expansion. So it's going to be amazing.
Thank you. I'm coming on this podcast every week for like a boost of little ego boost every week. I really appreciate you, Ash. And I just appreciate our friendship so much, how much it's expanded and grown since our own communication happened. And as we evolve as humans, we're just ever evolving. I knew someone in the past that would say, I am who I am and I'm not going to change. And I feel like that's one of the most ignorant statements you can possibly say. Like, I hope you change. I hope you change. I hope I change. I hope everyone changes and continues to get better and better every day. And I'm just grateful for our own expansion in that too.
Yes. Thank you. And, in wrapping up, one of the biggest things we wanted to talk about is friendship. And like I said, there wasn't anything necessarily bad, but there were some assumptions made. There was maybe not adequate communication. And sometimes when that happens, it's easier to just go your own way.
Run away.
But yeah.
I'll say run away. Yeah.
Yep. If you love someone, it's worth it. And you'll either get on the same page or you won't. But I I think that's been the biggest takeaway, is how important communication is. And I think that's why we have such a great friendship. Also, we share a lot of the same hobbies, a lot of the same friends, but I have to say that this past year in Arizona has been my best, and it's because of all the amazing people. I mean, we are so lucky to have Optimize. That's actually where we met. We had our first friend date there. So if you're listening and you're local, definitely check out Optimize. There's one in Tempe and Arcadia.
And you'll probably find us there.
If you're visiting, it's also great. So, doing activities with people you love, you can have fun and live a healthy lifestyle. And Jaclyn, you're the best example of that. So I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And I hope this episode helped people realize that being vulnerable, being honest, staying true to ourselves is going to allow us to find people where we're truly on the same page. And it's the best thing ever.
Absolutely. And getting to a place where you feel comfortable in your body too, because, and just to add this on, it's like, in my programs, this is something I work on with women where they are leaving some older toxic relationships and moving into calling in high value friendships. But I will tell you, it just doesn't happen overnight. You yourself become a high value person. You start respecting yourself in ways you never knew you could respect yourself. You start having those hard conversations. You start loving on yourself every day, eating healthy, all those things. And those friendships will just show up. It's like, our friend Val was like, hey, I think you and Ashley have some stuff in common. Maybe you should be friends on Instagram. And then it evolved, but it wasn't like I just, had to like walk around asking people to be my friends. Like they just show up when you are the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. And you work on it, every day. You truly, truly walk the walk. So huge inspiration personally, professionally. I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and maybe we will do a retreat together one day. But for now, definitely check that out, October 15th through the 19th in Sedona, and also the membership. So lots of different things we talked about, a little bit about dating, our friendship, navigating some of those challenges, the importance of health and lifestyle and surrounding yourself with like-minded people. So is there anything else that you wanted to share or just finish with as we wrap up?
I think the most important thing that I want to share, because you never know the direction like a podcast is going to go or what we talk about, as we move through. But my hope for this podcast, for us opening up about some of the stuff that's gone on in our life, is just more of an inspiration for people to say like, okay, it is okay to speak your truth, and it is okay to be vulnerable, and the right people will come into your life at the right time when you do. And if you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, you know what I mean? Like if Ashley and I spoke our truth to each other and one of us was like, okay, whatever, see you later, bye, that good riddance, get out of my life then, right? Because you really want to have the right people in your life. So most important thing in this aspect is to just understand what you need and you want as a person, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And every single time you do that, you stand up for that, life just gets better and better.
Yeah.
Well, so don't shrink yourself.
Yeah. You're such a great example of do no harm, but take no shit. Like I wouldn't mess with you, but you're so sweet and loving. But I also know that, you'll turn up if you have to, but
I'm like a Sour Patch Kid.
Love it.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm so grateful, and I hope that there were some things in this episode that added value to your life, and we appreciate you so much for listening. So I will put Jaclyn's Instagram down on the bottom. It's Jaclyn Renee Wellness, JACLYN RENEE, and then wellness. She puts out amazing content all the time, lots of great tips. So we'll see what else happens after this amazing journey you're about to go on.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll come back and tell you guys about it.
Can't wait. Well, thank you so much for being here, and love you so much. And I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. And thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review, ideally a 5-star review if you loved it. All of this is free of charge and really helps me to be able to run the podcast. If you take a screenshot and tag me, I'll repost you and shout you out on Instagram. So tag Ashley Taylor Wellness and High Maintenance Hippie Podcast. If you have any feedback or guests that you'd like to have, I would love to hear from you so that I'm not just talking at you. I really want to deliver things that are valuable. So send me an email with any feedback, suggestions, or ideas for guests at ashley@ashleytaylorwellness.com. And I will leave you with a disclaimer. Please know that this is not medical advice or replacement for seeking medical care. Everything discussed on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult with your medical provider before making any changes. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.